Hey y'all, how you doing? Unfortunately, the live streams I don't know as if they will be working anymore. Um, Hopefully, more than likely, if it's a pressing situation, um, it'll be probably on my phone or something. But my normal podcast, it's gonna have to be a recorded video. Okay. um, and it'll be posted to YouTube and all of that other good stuff. So, um, here we go. So, yeah, so we got this is what's happening. Last time we did this, the spring had not started, or the first leaves had not come out in the mountains of New York. So the Adirondacks, the Greens, even parts of the northern Berkshires, the White Mountains and the Maine Mountains. Actually, a good chunk of Maine had not even seen their first leaves yet. They have now come up. If we look at some of the dates here, we can kind of get a sense here. This was May 2nd. You got April 23rd, April 26th. So, like last week is when these areas in here got their first leaves. May 1st up in far northern New Hampshire here. So, a lot of areas within the past week or so have seen their first leaves pop up to the north here. So now that spring is here and it's sprung, you're now getting leaves popping up all over southern New England here. So we don't have to worry about that. The pollen is pretty nasty up there. You're getting like what we got back about a month ago, where everything was just coated in pollen. It was awful. But now what we're watching and what we're tracking here as we finish off we're in the last meteorological month of spring, um, is sort of the start of summer here. What is our summer pattern going to look like? And the one thing that was a little hedgy going into this season here was, are we going to see an El Nino or La Nina develop? And what I'm noticing here is we got cold waters in what we call the ENSO region of the Pacific off of the coast of South America. And originally it was looking like that was warming up. Well, now we're getting a surge of cold water coming in. And that means that this La Nina that we have isn't breaking down like a lot of the data expected. So a La Nina pattern typically means that the Atlantic is usually a little bit more isn't as volatile. All right, and it's looking like this hurricane season probably not as volatile as last hurricane season. It doesn't mean you can't get one big one. All it takes is one big storm for everything to just be a catastrophic season. Tell the people of North Carolina that from last year when Helene hit. But for the most part, it's looking like things are going to be very much. Um, Let me move this here. Um, it's looking very much like things are not going to be as wild. We're not going to get wild storms this year. The one thing I'm watching is there could be plumes of moisture that move up through parts of the South. We'll be watching that. That could have implications. But I think overall, I think it's going to probably be another warm summer. That's what my inclination is showing here right now. Um, it's looking like it might be starting kind of early. And I'll show you what I mean here coming up. But spring has definitely started. There's no two ways about that. Here are your temperatures today. Kind of nasty in New England. Kind of nasty up there. Um, you work your way further south, the temperatures got a little bit warmer. You saw those 70s to around 80. Actually, we did get over 80 degrees here today, here in Virginia. North Carolina, same deal. But overall, the general temperatures today were on the cooler side, but as you worked your way further south, there was a tinge of mugginess that you got. And here in Virginia was a little muggy, not too crazy, but a little muggy. All right, let's talk about the pattern here. So, let's cut through all the riffraff and talk a little bit here. By the way, there is a flash flood watch in effect for parts of New England. This is for the potentials of some rain that could lead to some flooding. Although you need the rain up there, you don't need that much. And there's the indications that there could be 2 to 4 inches of rain. And we'll get into how much rain y'all could see up there. But nevertheless, this is the pattern. All right. This is the pattern. And this is a perfect representation here. You got a trough in here, right? And then a ridge right in here, and then another little trough like this. It's a very interesting pattern. This is where you get your warm air. You're actually getting warm air surging around this upper low, and it's really in here. Really where the worst of the cold is happening is out into the west, but this is a closed off upper low. So you kind of got warm air surging up and around it, and then warm air kind of sinking south beneath this low. It's a very strange situation. You actually have warm air going up and over Canada, right? So it's a very strange situation. So how is this pattern going to evolve here? So this western low, right? See the one out west, that thing kind of just diminishes and kind of weakens. You might get you might try to get this kink right in here. And you have another trough up in New England here, but that's kind of holding back from this upper low right here. So later in the week, the question is, and this is for Friday, right? This is Friday. You got this horrible trough over New England. This is going to be pretty nasty. This is going to lead to probably some iffy weather. When I say iffy, I mean some nasty rain, some chilly stuff. But you even kind of got a little bit of a dip in the jet stream like this. When you see this, right, that means you got cold air surging in south. So you're not going to get too bolsterously warm into these areas. You got a pretty significant ridge out in here. All right. You got a ridge kind of out west. What we're watching is if this ridge is going to push east, right? This is the end of the weekend, and you are noticing, right? You're noticing that this major ridge is gradually shifting its way eastward by the time we get into next week. All right. Now, the Euro ensembles may not necessarily be as enthused as some of the other pieces of model data, but I am going to tell you this ridge coming in next week, by the time we get into the middle to the end of next week, is going to mean business. You're going to get, if you have not experienced from southern New England point south your first 90-degree day, you'll get that next week. You probably will get your first 80-degree day, 80-plus degree day, all the way up to the Canadian border with this sort of look, right? See how far north this ridge extends? All right. So then what ends up happening, this is sort of the pattern that we're going to be watching as we go through the rest of the month of May into June here, is you got this kind of weak trough in the northwest and a pretty potent ridge in the east. All right. If this is the type of pattern we're going to be contending with most of the summer, it's going to be another hot summer. Last summer was very hot. All right. New England, I'm never going to forget it. I'm never going to forget last summer because New Hampshire got some days. There's one day in particular where there were readings in parts of New Hampshire where the heat index was 112 degrees. You had Fort Kent all the way up there, right? Right up at the Canadian border, getting feels like temperatures of 100 or better. I mean, that was a pretty hot summer last year. But if this pattern sort of holds and you're kind of seeing it stick around here, it's going to be a hot summer. All right. And what's happening here is you're getting ridging, right? That's developing down here, and this is just pumping into the southeast. All right. So you're going to start getting some serious heat by the time you get from the from the 15th on. You're going to be starting to get your full-blown summertime action here in the south. That's just how it goes. New England, you're going to be really starting to heat up. Okay. Even up towards the Canadian border, you're going to start getting lots of 70-degree days. You're going to even get some 80-degree days. Wouldn't be shocked if you even try to squeeze out a day or two close to 90 with this sort of look. Here in the south, there's going to be days where we're going to be over 95 with this sort of look. Oh yeah, I mean, we already did it. We're going to do it again. We're going to do even better. And the question is, are we going to start getting that humidity coming in? Probably. That's my inclination here. This is a Euro ensembles. I'll bring up the GFS ensembles. Probably not much of a different look here. All right. So that moves out, right? But then there's that little kink in the jet stream Thursday, right? Friday, it's really tough in New England. But then it moves out for Saturday, right? It moves on out. And then what we watch as we go into next week, there's that ridge building in, right? See that ridge building in? Major ridge. When you see these heights, when you see heights go all the way up over Canada like this, you're going to be getting some pretty remarkable warmth. Going to be getting some pretty remarkable warmth. That's what you can take out of this sort of look here. Out in here, you got a trough, right? So in here, you got a trough. Upper level low. You got a pretty remarkable high down in the southeast, right? That's your general pattern as we get into the mid-month and really beyond, right? Do I see and what I see as we go beyond the mid-month is kind of where the whole country, right, save for the areas furthest north, right, near Canada, is pretty much under a ridgy pattern, right, where everybody's pretty much getting hot weather, or at least warm weather, right? Where's your hot weather with this sort of look? Your hot weather is generally along and south of this line. Your cooler weather isn't until you get north of this line here. North of this line. This is kind of warm, right? So that includes most of the mid-Atlantic, northern mid-Atlantic, southern New England, out into the west here. In here, you're getting, 70s, probably even nearing the 80s. Once you get south of this line, 80s, 90s, probably better than that. Okay. And that's the general pattern. See how it just doesn't really budge, right? It's not really budging. You're not getting major troughs and ridges. It's pretty much a rinse and repeat as we go through. That's something that we'll be watching here. So, let's look at the Canadian, see what the Canadian's suggesting. So there's that moves out, right? There's that upper trough, right? Should be moving out by Saturday. I'm pretty confident about that. And then there's your ridge next week, right? That's your ridge next week. Let me close out of a couple things. My computer is sounding horrible. This is next week, and that just moves through, and you're gonna get you're just gonna be talking about a pretty substantially. This is like the whole. When I see this is a Canadian model. When I see this sort of look across the whole country, it just basically says to me, everybody's warm, right? I'm not seeing, and everybody could make the argument, well, there's little kinks here and there or whatever, but the overarching theme here is that you're going to be moving away from a very troughy and ridgy pattern to more of a zonal pattern where you're going to be really the Gulf of Mexico is really going to be flexing its influence here. What I want to do here is bring up here. This is the CANSIPs here for the month of May, right? And you can see that yes, there might be things down in here. We'll see what happens with that. That's May. June, right? So this is June. And here's the thing, right? You see in here, these are your heights. See how you have kind of like this, right? And you say, well, what's that? But you look at the month of June and you look at the average heights, see how they're like this, okay? To me, most of the country is going to be above average, is what it looks like, right? That's June, July, right? There's a major ridge out east, right? And this is an interesting sort of pattern. And I was talking about ridging, troughing, ridging. But again, when you look at the actual heights, there's not really anything significant to suggest that, right? So we'll see what happens, but major ridging out east, right? August, September, October. I'm not seeing a whole heck of a lot of troughiness in the east through this whole period. Maybe not until February of next February, but that's so far out right now. But even then, I mean, this is a remarkably warm, if we go to monthly temperatures, right? So this is what your temperatures look like. A little bit cooler in here. You're near to above average along the east, right? July, right? So you have above here, above in the east. Or that's June, I mean. July, the east is above average, right? The whole east coast is above average. August, it's going to be a hot summer. That's the cold hard truth here. From Maine to Florida, it's going to be an above average summer. Is what that screams right now. And it looks like warm weather is just going to last right through September. Right through September. Even October is going to be warm. You don't start seeing cooler weather coming into New England until November. So this would indicate to me that, you could possibly be getting some pretty warm periods right through October if this is right. December, you start cooling down, but notice it's kind of that normal boundary that we talk about, right? But if this is right, you would be talking about ridge here, trough here, so we'll watch for that. That's December. January, though, you got the South doing its southern thing and the North doing its northern thing, so we'll watch. That's January. February, March, April, and then that's next April. Yeah. So, I mean, for the most part, it's looking pretty balmy. The longer range, right? When we go out further range, so certainly the summer. If we look at our first indications of what the summer looks like, it's going to be a warm summer. That's the general gist of everything, is that it's going to be a warm summer. So now we go into like the shorter range here, right? So that's that was the first time, by the way, I looked at that. This is a 10-day anomaly on the European, right? So this is May 5th through the 15th. Around average. Your coldest anomalies, right? Your coldest anomalies are in here, right? Where you have your upper level low situated. Warmest up in here. But you're going to notice it goes away, right? See how that warm air is sinking south. Eventually it goes away. That's on the Euro. If we bring up the GFS ensembles, You'll see it gradually erodes, and by the end of this period, you get warmer anomalies. This is why the CAN-SIPS was around average in here, but it will. Don't worry, all right? Don't let this fool you, right? You're cooler now, but you'll know as we go into the data, you're going to notice that things are going to get very warm very fast. Very warm very fast. And if we bring up the Canadian ensembles, again, this is 10-day. You'll notice that, see, by the end of the period, it's warming up everywhere. So you'll notice that. Okay, so let's go to the Euro again, and we'll bring up the maximum temperatures here. And let's go to the east here. So if we go to the east, this will give us a good indication here. This is for tomorrow. No, I'm sorry. This is for tomorrow. So tomorrow you'll be better in New England, right? You have your lower 60s in here. Your cooler weather is up in here. You might still be raining. Oh, this, by the way, one thing I do want to bring up. Let's bring up the high resolution data. We'll go into New England. We'll zoom into New England here, and I'll show you how much rain. Look at that rain, right? That's a lot of rain. This is why there's flash flood watches out in New England. All right, you could be getting over 2 inches of rain. All right, that's high resolution data right there. All right, we'll bring up the high resolution Canadian. Yeah, some areas are going to be getting a lot of rain. All right, some areas are going to be getting a lot of rain. If we look here, the GFS here, you'll notice that it has generally an inch or two, right? That's the GFS if we look at the European model. Does bring in more than a couple inches in some areas. So that's why there's flash flood watches. Look at the Canadian. Yeah, there's some areas that get over 2 inches of rain. So be watching that. That's going to be an issue if we look at the NAM model. I know the NAM tends to overdo things, but it's actually not an inch or two. So generally an inch or two, which is much needed. These in a drought in southern New England. So you definitely need it up there. High resolution NAM. I think it's the one that's overdoing it. Not really. So the lower valley, right, if we zoom in here, if we look at the valley has a little bit less, right? And this could be an issue for the drought going forward, right? If this ends up verifying where the lower valley gets less than a half an inch, could be an issue moving forward. And then you get more rain into the Worcester Hills, more rain into the Berkshires, more rain out into the Hudson Valley, more rain out along the eastern parts of Massachusetts. This could be an issue, right? But notice Connecticut's getting inundated with 1 inch to 2.25 inches of rain. So that's where the rain is happening, is down in here. So we'll see what happens, right? But let's go back to the Euro ensembles here, and let's go to the east, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the temperature. So my inclination here is that right now we're in a lull. All right, we're in a lull of the warm weather. Okay. Now you look down here and you're like, oh, 80 degrees in Virginia. That's close to average for this time of the year. That's not remarkably below average. Okay. This is Thursday, right? Friday we start getting a little bit below average here in Virginia, right? So our average this time of the year here in Virginia should be somewhere about 78 degrees. We're going to be a bit below that on Friday, right? See that? Saturday is actually going to be a nice day. A little bit below average in New England. More significantly, below average in Virginia, North Carolina. Okay. You'll be closer to average here. You'll be further below average in here. That's on Saturday. Sunday, things start warming up in Virginia. New England, you're generally staying about the same. By Monday, even though that the Canadian or the euro is showing lower, I think it's going to be greater than this. I think you're probably going to be getting pretty warm by Monday. Is my inclination. Certainly by Tuesday, you're going to be starting to really warm up. In New England, you'll be able to get some pretty nice days by Monday. And see what you're seeing here. See all of this out in here. This is all eventually going to be shifting east. It's all going to be shifting east, right? See how it's slowly but surely as we get towards mid-month. And I've been always eyeing, right? For a very long time, I was eyeing. There were two periods that I was talking about when it came in terms of warm weather. Talked about the end of April, all right? Here in Virginia, verified. New England was a little iffy. And then I was always talking about how by mid-May, that was when you were going to start seeing that massive surge of warmth up into New England, but especially here in the South, okay? And see, this is as we get into Thursday, the 15th, and now you're getting, and again, this is the mean, right? So, and I think you'll end up verifying higher on the higher ends of this, right? So New England, you'll probably be about 5 to 7 degrees warmer than this. Here in the South, will probably be probably close to at least 5 degrees, if not 10 degrees warmer than this. That's my inclination, right? And you can start seeing the 80-degree means shifting east here as we get in towards the middle of the month, right? And there's going to be some pretty significantly warm days as we get into mid-month. First very warm day, I think, is going to be probably Friday, the 16th. That's going to be a very warm day. Saturday, Sunday, okay. But it's going to last. This warm period is going to last a while. So if we kind of zoom out, that's on the euro. You say, well, what does the GFS ensemble suggest? This is tomorrow. All right, this is tomorrow. It's not going to be as bad in New England. Here in Virginia, it's going to be another day around 80 degrees. Same thing for Wednesday. Same thing on Thursday. All right. Friday is the questionable day, right? Friday, New England, not too pretty. Here in Virginia, we'll see what happens. This could verify. This might not. Saturday, we start warming up. I think New England, you'll probably be able to get into the 70s on Saturday, actually. It's going to be a great Mother's Day weekend, if you want my honest opinion. Sunday, just phenomenal. Probably into the mid-70s, mid to upper 70s is my thoughts. Sunday's just going to be great. Monday, going to be a nice day, right? That's when we're going to start warming things up. Tuesday, I think it'll be a little warmer than this, and you'll see as we get into each of the individual members. Wednesday is the day I think we're going to start seeing greater than 80, and even in New England, you'll probably be approaching 80 degrees. Thursday, definitely going to be getting pretty balmy, and then there's that Friday day, right? Friday the 16th. This is when things are going to get steamy. You'll probably be trying to do a little bit better than 80 degrees in New England on the 16th. And it kind of lasts. It kind of lasts, right? We're going to be getting into a very rinse and repeat sort of pattern going into the latter parts of May. It may relax a little bit, but you're going to notice as we get into like around the 24th time frame, man, is it going to get crazy. So it's going to be a very interesting period that we're going to be getting into. Go to the Canadian now, see what it suggests. Go to the 24-hour max. This was today. This is tomorrow. Tomorrow will be about the same here. And then that's Wednesday. That's Wednesday. So pretty nice day. Thursday, Friday, a little cooler. You see that? Saturday, start warming up a little bit, especially in New England. Here in Virginia, maybe not so much, but we'll see. Sunday, very nice day. New England, it's gonna be a great day. Monday starts really warming up. Tuesday, yeah, see, I think Tuesday we're gonna be a little bit warmer than this, but you notice what's happening. See this in here? That's a significant warm up. All right. And that's moving east. That's moving east. That's Tuesday. Wednesday. It's taking a little bit longer on the Canadian, but Thursday, see, it's moving east now. He's getting everybody getting 80 for a mean pretty much. Which means more than likely it'll be above that down in here. You'll be probably doing pretty nice up in New England with greater than 80 degrees. Down here, I think it's going to be absolutely hot. It's going to get downright hot. Yeah, you see that certainly by Friday, the 16th. It's going to get downright hot. You want to talk about hot? This is going to be hot. All right. When you're seeing these sorts of means, let's go ahead and prepare for about 95. All right. In here, let's go ahead and prepare for about 85 to 90. All right. 85 to 90. All right. But down here, go ahead and prepare for 95. Feels like temperatures are going to be just ridiculous. Yeah. Saturday, the 17th, going to be crazy. And it's going to stick around. See how it sticks around. Then it may relax a little bit sometime around the 20th. But don't worry, it's going to come back. It's going to come back with a vengeance, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's going to be a period for about 3 or 4 days, and then it relaxes a little bit, but not crazy, right? Probably down into the 80s here, probably mid to upper 70s to around 80 in New England. It relaxes a little bit, and then bam, by around Memorial Day, by around my birthday to just after my birthday, it's going to come back, and it's just, it's going to be intense. Going to be intense. That one there is going to be very intense. And like I said, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So go to the Mediagrams now, and this is in New Hampshire, so we're starting in New Hampshire. Notice, generally, if we go to the National Blend of Models, notice the warm-up. All right, that's very clear on here, the warm-up coming. All right, when I say that there's going to probably be 80s going all the way up, this is central northern New Hampshire, you're going to be getting 80s going all the way up there. All right, so enjoy spring, because the late spring, summer weather is going to be coming even in all the way up there in New Hampshire. We look at the Euro Ensembles extended here, or the Euro Ensembles, and you can see the rise in those temperatures. Maybe not nearly as much, but this is what I'm talking about, all right? When you examine this, right, and this is why I don't really take one specific temperature. I always love using these Mediagrams because they give you a nice visual representation of what the data is suggesting, right? So you can clearly tell that there's quite a number of days over the next, up until about the 13th, that we're getting some coolish weather. You got a pretty nice day coming in Thursday. What is this? Thursday, and a pretty nice day coming in Friday, right? Wednesday and Thursday, right? This is Wednesday. This is Thursday. Friday is going to be pretty crappy. But coming in Saturday is going to be pretty nice. Saturday and Sunday are pretty nice. When do we really start warming up? Well, in New Hampshire, you're going to get your first mid-80 degree day, I think. And that's going to be coming in around the 17th, right? This is going to be really warm. I'm telling you, you're going to get some very warm air up there. Wonderful days out on Lake Winnipesaukee are coming. You're going to be able to do that. If we look at the GFS extended, same concept, probably even more intense, actually. You're going to get some mid 80s up there. You're going to get some mid 80s. Yeah. 80s going all the way up to the Canadian border is what this is suggesting. And you're going to get about 2 or 3 days where you hit 85 over there in the lakes region. Then it kind of goes back, it weans back a little bit, right? Canadian ensembles, it's the same concept, right? It's the same exact concept. You're going to be talking about some very warm air. Now, this is the extended range. So this is what I'm talking about, okay? You're talking about your very warm period here. It falls back a little bit, but don't get used to it, because once you get to about the 24th, all right, I'm really eyeing around the 23rd, 24th time frame, right about here. All right. Once you get there, we're running for the races. Summer is going to be pretty much in full swing. And once you start running, you ain't going to be looking back. Now, this is in New Hampshire, so you're not going to be seeing as many 90-degree days up there, but you're going to be basically talking every day 75, 80 degrees on the way. And there will be some days where you get above 80 and maybe even getting into the mid 80s. And again, this is what the Euro is suggesting as well. Maybe not to the same extent, but again, the GFS tends to do a little bit better at sniffing out warm weather than the European does. But here it is. You have this warm up, right? This is our warm up. It weans back a little bit, and then we get to about the 24th, and heat's on, and we're basically not gonna look back, right? We're fully into summer once you get into the 24th and on. So, let's go to Manchester. All right, let's go to Manchester, and it's even more clearly defined, right? You're talking about the low to mid 80s now once you get into Manchester, right? That's where things are a little bit more defined. All right, you look at the Euro ensembles, right? And you really can see as we get towards the end of this period, you're talking about upper 80s, right? You're talking about upper 80s. That's what you're going to be looking at. All right. And you say, well, the mean isn't there. Well, if I were to go based off of the mean all the time, I wouldn't have nailed down these warm periods. But I'm going to tell you something. When you start seeing, pretty much every single member suggesting 75 or greater in southern New Hampshire, you're talking a very warm period coming. And this is going to be your first major surge of warmth coming in around the 15th. And I've been eyeing it for a very long time. You're going to wean back a little bit, right? Around the 20th, 21st, sometime around that frame, you'll wean back for a few days. And then around the 24th, it hits. And it's going to be intense. All right. Maybe not so intense in New England, but it's going to be intense. You'll notice. So there's that warm period, and I'm gonna probably hit 90 in Manchester. Let's not fool ourselves. We're gonna probably hit 90, or at least very close to it. Upper 80s to around 90 degrees, and your overnight lows. I'm not too concerned about hot overnights there yet. You'll get your it'll be nice, right? Your overnights will be low to mid 60s, right? Which for New England standards is a little on the warm side, right? But you're not talking anything excessive, right? You're not talking upper 60s, lower 70s. That's pretty excessive up there. But I'm not too concerned about that yet. Notice I said yet. Anyways, here's the warm period that we're watching, right? Around the mid-month. Starting around the 15th, ending around probably the 21st, all right? Weans back a little bit, and then right around the 24th, bam, more hot weather, and that one's going to last. One's going to last a while. That one's going to last a while. We look at the euro. Same concept. Okay. There's your warmth. Weans back a little bit right until about the 24th, and then the 24th on, it's going to start warming up, and it's summertime. Full-blown summertime. Okay. Let's just go. We'll go to the Boston area, I guess. Same concept, right? Same concept. You might see it a little on the cooler side here because of the sea breeze. But what you will notice is that the overnight lows are a little on the warmer side. That's a typical summertime pattern where the Boston area tends to be a little bit warmer overnight than areas to the north and west. You're seeing warmer overnights there. GFS, you're not seeing as many mid 80s. And again, that's because of the sea breeze, right? That sea breeze effect. But you still can get some pretty warm days over there. Still can get some very warm days over there in the Boston area. So again, there's your warm period, relaxes a little bit, and then by the 24th, it starts warming up again. All right. Same concept on the European extended. Okay, let's go to the Springfield area. Again, it's the same idea, right? You're going to be warming up significantly. We go to the Euro ensembles here. And by the way, I'm going to be visiting New England coming in on Saturday and Sunday. I'll be up there. And then I'm going to Seattle. I'm going to Seattle on the 17th. And I will be back on the 24th or 23rd, I mean. Late the 23rd. So really the 24th. But yes, so New England not looking shabby this weekend. So again, Saturday, probably upper 60s. And then Sunday, probably we're going to be able to get into the low to mid 70s. It'll be a very nice day this weekend. And then you start warming up, and this doesn't really show it as much, but I do think that I do think New England, the middle of the month, you're going to be able to get into the mid to upper 80s. The Springfield area, and you can kind of see that here. You're going to be able to get into the mid to upper 80s. That's my honest take. You may even be able to exceed 90. Honestly, you already hit near 90 already. You'll get your first day above 90 with this warm up, and then it cools back a little bit, and then the 24th on, get ready. That's when summertime's fully coming in. It's going to be early. It's going to be pretty early this year. Let's go to New York. We'll go to New York City. And again, it's not much different than the Springfield area other than that this cooler day is a little on the warmer side. But these warmer days aren't all that different, right? You're not seeing it remarkably warmer. But what you are noticing is that these warmer days coming in later on in the month are going to be a little warmer, right? A little on the warmer side. So you might be able to exceed 90, or at least you have a greater chance of exceeding 90 in the New York City area. Yeah, see, that's what's showing here, right? You got quite a few popping up during that time. Then I look at this, and I'm telling you, you got your warm period here. It relaxes a little bit, and then the 24th on, summer is going to be fully here. It's going to be fully here. Euro may not be as impressed or as enthused, but I'm still seeing the 24th on. You're going to start really warming up. So get ready for that. Let's go to the Harrisburg area. And again, you can see how now you're starting to get some more extreme values towards the middle to the end of the period, right? You're getting some more extreme values there. And you're now seeing more days well into the 80s once you get to Harrisburg, right? On the Euro ensembles. Go to the GFS. It's not actually showing as high, but you'll get pretty warm over there. I don't have any questions about that. I think the Canadian is a little more accurate, showing the possibilities of getting above 90. And then I look at this. So there's your warm period cools off, and then there's your summertime heat coming in. And here's the euro, and you can kind of see by the 24th, you're getting some massive warm weather coming in, and it pretty much sticks around after that. Um, let's go to Philly. Right here's Philly, and you notice it's pretty much showing some pretty warm air coming in. And this is where you start seeing, once you get to Philly, you're now seeing some 90-degree values popping in on the Euro ensembles. Um, and it's showing pretty drastically that the Philly area will probably be able to exceed 90 degrees over there. And then you look at the Canadian, and yeah, you're going to be getting well above 80 over there, well above 80, uh, probably even approaching the 90. And then it goes back, and then the 24th on. All right, I'm telling you, the 24th on is going to be a serious warm period. It's going to be very warm. The numbers of members that I'm seeing here showing 95 or greater is remarkable. And when you get that sort of indicator this far out, it usually doesn't that usually signifies that something's going to be happening. And you can kind of see it a little bit more clearly on the euro, that yeah, there's going to be a warm up around this period. So that's the Philly area. If we go to DC now, there it is, right? So there's these few days right around 80, drops to around 70, and then you start the upswing, right? Starting Sunday. And then once we get into the following week, summertime's here. All right, summertime's here. It's pretty much here. Here's the Euro ensembles, and it's no question, right, that this period, it's just going to be remarkably warm. It's just going to be remarkably warm. GFS ensembles, I mean, it's even clearer, right? There's indicators that you're probably going to get into the mid 90s in DC. You probably will, is what it looks like to me. You probably will. I mean, you probably will. This is the Friday, Saturday. It's looking pretty warm to me. And I look at this, right? Here's your warm period, right? Cools back a little bit, right? And then the 24th. Here's the 24th right here. After that, man, it's going to get rocking and rolling. It's going to get rocking and rolling with the heat. It really is. I mean, 24th on. Numbers of 90s that I'm seeing, it's going to be almost an everyday affair, or at least multiple day affairs. And, I look on the Euro ensembles here, and I'm just seeing that by the time we get after the 24th, we're going to be in for some very warm days. Very, very warm days. Go down here into Virginia. And again, the next few days will be right around 80 either side. Then we drop to around 70 for a couple days. And then we're back on the upswing. And by the time we get to the end of next week, we're going to be about 90. We're going to be talking about close to 90 again. So here's the longer range. And, like I said, the numbers of I think the Euro might be underdoing it a little bit, but I think that we'll be probably hitting the mid 90s here. Like I said, we already did it. I just, see, this is what the GFS is saying. I think the GFS is more representative. So let's see. This is Friday, right? Above 90. Saturday. gonna be a scorcher. I won't be here for it, but Saturday's gonna be a scorcher. 95, 96, 97 is what it looks like. Sunday, Monday, probably another day above 90. Then Tuesday and Wednesday, probably back into the 80s, right? That's the 20th, and then the 21st, 22nd, probably around that as well, and the 23rd. So there's that wean back a little bit. 24th, though, I'm telling you, from the 24th on, right? There's about the 24th right there. 24th on, it's toast. You're absolute toast. You're getting pretty much 90 or better every day. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. Some days are going to be very warm, be above 95. And same concept on the Euro ensembles as well. You know, I marked down. There's our warm period. Relaxes a little bit. It's kind of harder to pick out the relaxation period on the Euro ensembles. But let me get rid of put out the 24th. There's a 24th on, and you can clearly see it's going to be really warming up from there then on, right? And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to bring up Southern North Carolina, because we were about as warm as Southern North Carolina these past several days. Now, these days we won't be nearly as warm, but once we get into this period here, yeah, there's not going to be much of a difference. We were actually a little bit warmer some days than it was in Southern North Carolina, believe it or not. And that's how it works, right? Piedmont tends to heat up very quickly because you're low in elevation. It just sucks in all the warm air. So, you know, I think this is pretty representative of what's going to happen here in Virginia, right? Pretty representative. Look at the Canadian ensembles, and yeah, it's the same concept. You're actually starting to get some 100-degree members. Probably not going to hit 100, but it's going to be pretty darn warm. There's no questions asked about that. And this is what I'm talking about here. Is you got your warm period here. It relaxes a little bit, and then you hit the 24th. Right? Here's the 24th. I'm just eyeing the 24th. All right. 24th onward. It's you're toast. You're just absolute toast. And there's no question in my mind that that's what it's going to look like. And I think the Euro ensembles are a little bit more, they're doing weird stuff further to the north. That's why it shows it cooler. But there's no question in my mind that once you get to about the 24th, which is right here, everybody's warming up. Everybody's warming up. So that's when, so if anybody wants to know, when are you going to start getting some really warm air in the east? The 24th of May. Prior to the 24th, you'll get some periods, and there's going to be a very warm period from about the 15th till about the 20th, 21st. There's going to be about a 5-6 day period. It's going to get very warm, very, very warm. All right. And then you're going to get a relaxation, but that relaxation period really isn't going to be cold. I wouldn't mark it as cold. It'll actually be close to, if not a little bit above average still. And then, woof, man, once you get 24th on, probably some heat waves. Up in New England, you'll have your first shot of a heat wave at that point. Here in the South, you'll probably have some opportunity for some probably near 100-degree heat. Yeah, it's going to be very hot. Right, 24th on. You know, that's what it looks like to me. You know, and if I were to have to pick out here, you know, I like using, like, sometimes I like looking at these here, right? So this kind of shows me, okay, so you got from the 24th till about the 30th, you got some very warm days coming in, right? And then you might go back for a couple days, right? It drops down. And then this is another serious warm period in here. But again, like if you were to kind of average out this whole period, it's basically right about 90 degrees. Some of these days you're getting much greater than that, right? Like these days in here, whew, whew, yeah, very warm, very, very warm. Um, you look at the ensembles extended, and this kind of really shows, right? So right through about you got about the 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, very warm, falls back for a couple days, and then, or for a day, and then what is that, the 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, it's hot, and then it goes back a couple days, and then you have a few more crazy days, all right? That's what I'm looking at, right? You say, well, what about Richmond? It's going to be pretty much the same concept, right? You got these very, very hot days, right? Then it falls back a little bit, probably into the mid to upper 80s, is my guess. And then you get these crazy warm days, and then it falls back, and then when it falls back, though, it's only falling back to probably like 87, 88, right? Maybe, and that's what's going to end up happening is you're going to just start racking up those 90-degree days very quickly. That's what's going to end up happening, you know. So I'm seeing a lot of indications here, but I think the GFS extended is actually a little bit more representative here. So you have your very warm period in here, right? And then it falls back. But when I say falls back, it's like around 80. This is the 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, right? It's see this upswing here, and then you got the 28th, 29th, right? So these days in here, every day is going to be warmer than the next up until about the 29th. And then you might fall back. But again, this is still into the mid 80s. And then you get another major warm period. Significant, very, very significant. First, second, the second, third, fourth, and fifth. Those days are going to be crazy, crazy. And then it falls back. It falls back. And then that's before the next surge of warmth where it probably goes way up. But this period and these two periods are going to are going to be the real story through the end of May into the beginning of June. So that's the overall theme, and we'll see what happens as we move forward. But that's it for now. Y'all take care, and we will see you soon. We'll do this soon. Take care, y'all.